I announce the arrival of the Chancellor of the University of Namibia and fourth President of the Republic of Namibia, Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, with his guest, the former President of Botswana, fifth President, and our guest of honor tonight, Dr. Masisi. Clap for them. Let's give them another round of applause. Please, you may be seated. Your Excellencies, Chancellor of the University of Namibia and fourth President of our Republic of Namibia, Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, accompanied by Madame Mbumba, the fifth President of the Republic of Botswana and a friend of the Namibian people, Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, our guest of honor tonight, and main speaker, accompanied by Madame Masisi. Madame Monica Gengos, our third former First Lady, the Speaker of the National Assembly, former Speaker of the National Assembly, we are expecting him, the Vice Chairperson of Council, Madame Paulina Elago, Vice Chancellor, Prof. Kenneth Matengu, PVC Academic Affairs, Prof. Gideon Frednand, PVC Administration and Finance, Prof. Ellen Namila, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Deputy Ministers present, senior government officials, former ministers, members of parliament, former members of parliament, esteemed ombudsman, members of the diplomatic corps, the University of Namibia staff and students and staff from our sister institutions, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the media and our online guests from across the Southern African region and elsewhere. Welcome to this public lecture by His Excellency, Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, former President of the Republic of Botswana, on the topic of Botswana relations, past, present, and future. I'm Yvonne Dausap, the newly appointed Executive Dean of the Faculty of Management, Commerce Management and Law, and a former Minister of Justice of the Republic of Namibia. Your Excellencies, if you can see, this is an anticipated moment. Everybody has been waiting, and I will not waste any more time, and now call on our Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, Professor Kenneth Matengu, for his welcoming remarks.
Your Excellencies, Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, also the Chancellor of the University of Namibia, Your Excellency, Dr. Masisi, the former First Ladies, dear colleagues, fellow academics, the executive directors, and all our distinguished guests, in the interest of time, please allow me to observe the protocol as established by our Master of Ceremony. This evening is a special one for the University of Namibia, because it's not always the case that we I have the honor to host two former presidents and 3 former first ladies in one venue. I think this is a moment that we will cherish forever. We have had former presidents before who have come here mostly for honorary degrees, but not to have the opportunity to interact with academics and students. And therefore, this evening is very special, Your Excellency, for us. I do not dare to get into the history of relations between Namibia and Botswana, but I do know that it is one that we have cherished and will continue to cherish for over a long time. When the Namibians were being persecuted, that's where they ran to. Botswana has been always a conduit through which we reach the greater Africa. Even our Chancellor at some point spent some time on his way into exile in Botswana. So we want to appreciate that friendliness that has been extended over time. There may have been times, or there may be times in the future where there is friction, but that's what happens to neighbors when they sharpen each other. Isn't it? As a university, we do have a platform which we call public lecture series. The purpose of this public lecture series is for us to reach out to those academics and scientists and leaders who are interested in shaping the public discourse, in ensuring that thought leadership is exercised, and that the country, universities play a role in shaping the kind of society we want to see, not the other way. Universities must be at the forefront of what the future must look like in terms of the type of knowledge and capacities it produces, but also in terms of the relations that it mentors and ensures that its graduates are benefiting from what the future should give. Therefore, the history, the past, and the future that you are going to be indicating to us as you present, we will take it in the context that this is part of shaping the future we want to see. As a university, we have had the privilege of graduating. I checked the statistics this afternoon. We have had the privilege of graduating 1,786 Botswana citizens. This is since 1992 when we were established. Of that 1,700, about 940 or so were females. I do not know how many of them stayed. Secondly, I would like to indicate to you, Your Excellency Masisi, that the institution that you came to speak at is one that is also very active in shaping knowledge in terms of its scientific production and in terms of its scholarly work. Since 2018, the University of Namibia started to prepare to participate in university rankings. When we started, we were at 94 in Africa. 3 years back, we were number 13, no, actually 16. 2 years back, we were at number 13. And that is as far as the Times Higher Education ranking system is concerned. And I would like to say the achievement of number 13 on the continent is not easy, because this is out of 2,500 African universities. So you have come to a home that participates in knowledge production, in research, but also in terms of impact and contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. This week, for the first time, the University of Namibia will also participate in QS World University Rankings. The results I'm not going to say now because they will be launched on Thursday in Accra. And as president of the Association of African Universities, I will be making that announcement. So I can't make it now. But I can confidently say that out of the 1,000 universities that participated in this, about 300 or so that have been evaluated, the University of Namibia is still proud to be part of the few that are on the top. With this, I would like to give credit to our students and academics for the hard work that they put and for turning up in big numbers to engage with you. Your Excellency, with this, I would like to stop here and say, all of us, welcome to your home away from home. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm not used to these shoes I'm wearing, so it's a bit of a... Your Excellencies, because we are at the University of Namibia, I thought I should also acknowledge the presence of our Registrar of the University, Professor Eric Keabetswe, and also the presence of our University Librarian, Dr. Joseph Dinoshiho. I'm still struggling a little bit with the name, but I think I got it. And then, of course, our sister University of Botswana. I want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Kailo Molefe and Dr. Gladys Mokawa. Please give them a round of applause. And there are also very important alumni in the house, and they are reminding me to acknowledge you. So all the alumni of the University of Namibia are duly acknowledged. I know our former president, Dr. Nangula Mbumbe, doesn't like long things, so I will not waste any more time and invite, as you rise on your feet, His Excellency Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, former and fourth president of the Republic of Namibia and Chancellor of the University of Namibia, to introduce our guest.
Let us sit down. That is my Minister of Justice. Our Director of Ceremonies, or Director of Proceedings, Ms. Yvonne Dausap, as you have rightly introduced yourself, former Minister of Justice. I could just see in the cabinet where you used to sit. Our guest of honor and speaker at this occasion, Your Excellency, Dr. Mokgweetsi Eric Masisi, fifth President of the Republic of Botswana, and our beloved sister, Madam Neo Jane Masisi. Give her a big hand. She's my favorite. Esteemed members of the Botswana delegation, honorable members of cabinet or former members of cabinet, parliament or former members of parliament, members of the diplomatic corps, public-private sector official present, captains of industry, executive and associate deans, UNAM management and staff, all academics and students present, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good early evening. Oh yeah, it's not good for you yet, eh? I want to claim two things. One, that in 1965, Christmas time, Christmas Eve, I was in Maun, Botswana, negotiating how to get bread for Christmas. Make your calculations. And therefore, I consider myself really a Botswana when I'm in a good mood, and especially when I'm in bad mood. The other thing I want to claim is, apart from being chancellor, that chancellorship made me successor to one of my favorite people, because first chancellor was Dr. Nuyoma, rightly so. Second chancellor was Dr. Pohamba, rightly so. Third chancellor should have been Dr. Gaingop. He declined it. It fell on me, so I became successor to President Pohamba. Now, it is my utmost pleasure to join you at this important lecture titled Namibia-Botswana Relations, Past, Present, and Future. Today is indeed a momentous day for UNAM. To have someone of the caliber of His Excellency Dr. Masisi, 5th President of Botswana, delivering a public lecture is no mean feat, is no simple matter. Congratulations for achieving that. Regional and international profile of UNAM. In this regard, let me, on behalf of the University of Namibia, express our profound gratitude to Your Excellency, Mr. President, for having accepted our invitation and traveled to Namibia to grace this occasion together with your dear wife and your esteemed delegation. Namibia and Botswana are cooperating in numerous areas for economic and social development towards the mutual benefit of our peoples, and we all look forward to new and intensified cooperation in the years to come under the helm of our respective leaders, our respective new presidents, Her Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah and His Excellency Advocate Duma Boko. If you don't mention the advocate, you'll be in trouble. Most certainly, His Excellency President Masisi will expound on the metamorphic journey of Namibia-Botswana relations. Therefore, allow me, without delay, to introduce our honored speaker on this great occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency President Mokgweetsi Masisi served as the 5th President of the Republic of Botswana from 2018 to 2024. He is a teacher. I'm glad also I'm a teacher. He's a development worker that I cannot claim. He's a politician, he's a better politician than me, who rose through the ranks of the Botswana Democratic Party. Before becoming president, he was a school teacher, a UNICEF program officer, a member of parliament, a cabinet minister, and a vice president. He is born on the 21st of July, women don't mind. We mention our date of birth. 21st July 1962. In Moshupa, His Excellency Masisi is a career educationist who attended Thornhill Primary School and completed his secondary education at Moeng College. In 1984, he graduated from the University of Botswana with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and History, followed by a diploma in secondary education. After teaching for a short time, he won a scholarship to study in the United States. At Florida State University, he earned a second bachelor's degree and a master's degree in social studies education and in structural systems design in 1989. In 1999, he received the prestigious Chevenix Scholarship from the British government and completed further studies in economics and social policy at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. His strong academic background in education and social policy later shaped many of the programs he introduced as minister and as president of Botswana. In 2008, he won the BDP primary elections and became the party's parliamentary candidate for Moshupa. He held several portfolios in the government of Botswana, such as Assistant Minister for the Presidential Affairs, that's very close to power when you are in the president's office, and Public Administration at State Presidency, then Minister for Presidential Affairs, full minister now, and Public Administration, and acting minister at the Ministry of Education and Skills Development. Following the Botswana general election in October 2024, His Excellency President Masisi handed over office to His Excellency Duma Boko in a seamless transfer of power, signifying Botswana's sound democratic architecture, while at the same time demonstrating the exemplary character of His Excellency President Masisi, who continues to be a much respected and sought after leader in Botswana, the SADC region, on the African continent, and further afield. Indeed, we are all keen to listen and learn from this admired and admirable statesman. Therefore, without further ado, it is my distinct privilege to invite our speaker for tonight, the fifth President of the Republic of Botswana, His Excellency Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, to the podium in order to deliver his much anticipated lecture. Your Excellency, Mr. President.
President Mumba is extremely generous, kind, and I know it is in the order of welcoming guests. He didn't reveal many things about my scars in the political when I lost primary elections at the very first attempt and took it and tried, which was meant to be the last time. after being viciously scolded by my wife for wasting time and wasting family resources, and for having told her many untruths that I was going to win. I was on top of my game. And it was a serious loss. But thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests. And let me begin by saying how very proud I am to be here tonight. Your Excellency, the Chancellor of this university and former President of the Republic of Namibia, President Nangolo Mbumba, and your dear wife, former First Lady, Madam Mbumba, the former First Lady, Madam Monica Gengos, the former First Lady of Botswana, and my dear, beloved, sweetie wife, yes, only wife. Neo Masisi, Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Sarah Amadila, the Vice Chairperson of Council, Madam Paulina Ilago. We worked together in SACU for a long time. VC, Kenneth Matengu, and your colleagues, ministers here present, deputy ministers, former ministers, members of parliament, academic staff, esteemed ombudsman, the Attorney General, members of the diplomatic corps present, senior government officials, students, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. It gives me goosebumps to be here because of what Namibia means to me and because of what UNAM means to me. Among the things that Dr. Mbumba omitted, I think in the interest of time, is that I perambulated the halls of UNAM, not as a student, but as an active development worker deeply invested in applied research for HIV prevention. Around the years 2006, 2007, I think from 2005, where we trained those students we recruited to become our research assistants. And I was given the task of managing the research program in the north of Namibia. I'm now going to let out a few secrets. This might explain why I know so many Oshanas. It might explain why I can easily greet you in perfect Kwanyama. It might explain why I am able to navigate and drive you to any particular spot you want to be at in Onambira, in Inana. I can cross the border either on a truck, on a bicycle, on a van, car, in Ohampongoloshu. And yes, the streets of Oshakati, Utapi, and its outskirts, I can take you there and back safely. So it's immensely pleasurable for me to be with you here today for a number of reasons. I consider Namibia my home. And so sometimes when I get welcomed, I feel a little out of place. I sometimes feel I should be welcoming you because I'm home. And I have every reason to feel so. And as the adage goes, home is where the heart is. It is home for me because this also is the birthplace and the end place of my dear beloved brother and friend, Hage Gottfried Geingob. If you understand the concept of acceleration of relations, look at me and Hage. If you understand what it means to beat an Olympic record in terms of fraternity, brotherhood between presidents from different generations, but who relate purposefully for their nations, bring it on. Show me anybody who's going to compete with Hage and I. If you want to have a contest, a duet, if you like, of the best dancing presidents, bring it on. And so I feel particularly privileged to be in his home, my home, among his people, my people. And because this provides me an opportunity to share with you some highlights that speak to the depth of our relations between our two nations and peoples. Namibia, more than any other country in the region, provided for me a platform for testing my capability in statecraft. And boy, did I have fun. And the reason for it, in part, which I want to give thanks to you, the people of Namibia, this university, the person and the institution that Hage was. It provided an ambient environment for a young, fairly new president to come in and hustle. And that I remain eternally grateful for. So I'm both professionally and personally invested in the relations between Namibia and Botswana. Our historical ties can be traced to a very painful memory of the heinous conflict. Not conflict, but genocide of 1904, where a significantly large number of the Herero and Nama people were massacred, brutalized, killed by the fascist, settler colonist, oppressive German settlers. They were slowly but systematically exterminated, even in concentration camps. There were no rules that governed the craft of war. There was no recourse. There was no international standard or institution to cry to that would listen at the time, which explains the deep, regrettable, and embarrassing denial for so many years. That, if you ask me, ought to be valued and monetized. So I don't think you finish your monetization of the compensation you demand. It ain't over. The pain we feel to this day, the trauma of your neighbors in Botswana when they received traumatized, wounded, limping, ailing, ill brethren of Nama Herero with horrific stories was trauma to us in Botswana. We still feel it today because we get very scared, particularly when you look at what's going on in the world, that how can this be stopped forever? How can impunity be prevented forever? Many of the Herero and Nama people who survived sought refuge in the then Botswana land, now Botswana. And we accepted and welcomed them. This was perhaps the initial test of how to handle relations with a neighbor when you yourself have no experience to draw from. Needless to say, we had to bootstrap and get on with the program. As we did, we welcomed our brethren from Namibia. Many of their progeny are settled in and full citizens of Botswana, while some, as you know, chose to retrace their footsteps to their land of origin, the land of their ancestors, the land of the brave, Namibia. So with this cross-pollination intersection, forced as it might have been, how can you not claim to be Botswana? You here. So join President Mbumba and declare yourselves to be Botswana. How can I standing here not claim to be Namibian? We can only perhaps successfully claim to exclude either country if we all undertook a very comprehensive DNA test to ensure that in our lineage there was no exchange, which I doubt. In the 1940s, a prominent traditional leader, Chief Tsikedi Khama, had the audacity to author and deliver a well-reasoned and persuasive petition to the UN, objecting then formally and very publicly to the malicious intentions of the notorious General Jan Smuts, who wanted to fully incorporate the then Southwest Africa into the Union of South Africa. So imagine a traditional leader in Botswana daring to challenge the international community to live up to the promises and pledges of the League of Nations and ensure that South Africa does not. And so before you developed your program of international contact, petitioning at the UN, before SWAPO came to being, here was a traditional leader who had the foresight to look out for, speak on behalf of, to internationalize and make sure that this became currency for debate. The welfare, the well-being, the future of the people of Namibia. The formal seeds of our long-standing commitment to your freedom were planted then. The formal seeds of shaping our foreign policy with respect to how we viewed Namibia was shaped by a commitment to make sure that the concept, the nation state, the people, the livelihoods, the welfare, your prosperity and peace are assured. So we became the guardians and the guarantors of who you eventually became. We in Botswana, looking out for other Botswana and other Namibians. The liberation movement in the region delivered another blow how to navigate the management of state affairs in the face of blatant brutality, blatant racist, divisive onslaught. How to balance solidarity with national security imperatives, and how to remain resolute while remaining vulnerable. And so, as I've argued strongly and I'll argue tonight, hopefully persuasively, that yes, liberation movements, many, including from Namibia, chose or perhaps were forced, circumstanced into bearing arms and waging war. We in little old Botswana, after careful analysis, chose to bear our suaveness, intellect, and diplomacy, and yet be a part of the liberation struggle. So yes, we claim rightfully a seat at the table of liberation movements. How could we not, when we provided safe passage for every patriot of every country that needed to be liberated in the region? It was Botswana that was the birth canal. Not just birth canal, the safe, warm, assuring birth canal that always delivered. We always delivered healthy babies. Botswana played a very supportive, albeit cautious role in Namibia's independence struggle, primarily as a frontline state. And if you recall, Botswana was a founding member of the Frontline States movement, hosting refugees, facilitating liberation efforts despite its non-aligned stance and vulnerability to South African aggression and pressure and assault. Botswana did what any reasonable neighbor could have done. That is, it allowed members of SWAPO, of Plan fighters, to cross its borders and seek refuge in camps near and shared frontiers, particularly the Dukwi and Francistown areas. In fact, Francistown, where for record, all your first 4 presidents passed through, lived in, and particularly at the White House. Yes, we also have a White House. It's a White House that was occupied by presidents in Francistown that we'd wish to protect and repose the history of the struggle. The White House served as a critical hub for informal reception centers, where SWAPO and other liberation stalwarts personnel received temporary shelter, exchanged shared critical information and guidance, and perhaps navigational tools, even though if you talk to all former 4 presidents who have been through there, it was interesting how they journeyed out of there. I think one of the most hilarious was my dear brother Hagi Gengob's story of how he set about with others to try and walk to the border from Francistown. And boy, I don't know what happened when my brother woke up one morning. I think the sun must have moved and decided to rise from a different angle because he turned left and faced Maung, walking in quest of your liberation, in quest of the establishment of this very precious institution that we now enjoy, UNAM. President Semnyoma, Namibia's founding father, escaped to Francetown many times, including 1960 and 1964, after arrests by the South African authorities. Beyond just using the site for shelter, he strategically used it for networking with other liberation activists and coordinating onward travel to exile bases. President Haile Geingob, as I said, was in that camp in 1962, the year of my birth. And he so brutally reminded me how young I was. You, young president, I was in Botswana before you were born. He often did that when we had very intense discussions. And if we reached a point of a disagreement, then he pulled that out. Basically to shut me up and remind me that I am inexperienced. But all with a very hearty smile. He passed through Francetown and he landed up in Lusaka. The rest is history at the institute that we so well know. Other leaders utilized the Francetown route, where fighters and figures such as President Hifikepunye Pohamba and President Nangolo Mbumba met, even at Kazungula, where they had to debate whether to use a pontoon, because when they looked to the right, when they're in Kazungula, the Rhodesian malicious Selous scouts were there waiting for them like crocodiles. Or they swam in a river infested with all sorts of snakes, hippos, crocodiles, and every danger of the current when it flowed. I think it's important to note that these transit routes enabled fighters to move toward training camps, the training camps in Zambia, training camps in Tanzania and in Angola, without formal endorsement. So we facilitated, and yet we suavely and very conveniently, when accused by the racist South Africans correctly that we had no training camps in Botswana, we had no terrorists in Botswana, we did not facilitate any liberation struggle stalwarts, and surely with the landmass we had, if South Africa with its might can come and help us find them, we will close those camps. Of course, obviously, that's how, after we'd conveniently let them go, and there was nothing to show for it. But that was a strategy that was applied. Even with the commitment to support and the solidarity, the relationship between Namibia and Botswana were not always rosy. There have been moments where there were challenges to the warm relations, such as the territorial dispute between the unnecessary territorial dispute between Botswana, the painful and unnecessary territorial dispute between Botswana and Namibia, which was the result of the 1890 treaty between, guess who? Germany and the UK. And we are the ones who are the protagonists in the dispute. The ambiguity of this alienation has led both governments to issue competing claims on territory. In the border rivers of the Sududu Islands, I think otherwise called Kasiliki, that one. Representing a particularly contested prize, while the islands themselves have some value as tourist destinations. The primary concern was the division of water reserves that legal jurisdiction over the territory would offer. Tensions between the two administrations escalated to a point where arbitration of the International Court of Justice was sought as the conceivable path to deal with the dispute. It is important to note that this dispute ran the risk of sparking an interstate conflict and represented a pervasive threat to the peace and stability in the region. And I want to argue, posit that that was the lowest point in my experience and knowledge of relations between Botswana and Namibia. And for that, I remain deeply apologetic. We should never have gotten there. We should never, ever get there again. Utterly preventable, man-made, and driven by characters that you don't want in certain positions in either Botswana or Namibia. So look out. When we mingle, I can tell you the characters on our side, and you can share the characters on your side. But when you face adversity and a conflict, you don't want egotistical persons to be thumping their chests. To encourage brother to fight brother, sister to fight sister, mother, daughter, father, son. It doesn't make sense. So I want to urge and plead with you that as we look into the future, we must never allow ourselves to regress to that level of incivility. And I'm glad we were welcomed in a building that was as a result of cooperation with the military here. Always be guarded with military rhetoric and operational procedures, because this shoot to kill was a military procedure that unfortunately found its way to escalation, to pronouncement by such significant persons that it became seen as policy. And that's why as soon as I got the responsibility to exercise full executive power over my country, I erased it until you couldn't recognize wherever it had been. With the territorial dispute and the occasional tensions due to both the interpretation of handling anti-poaching campaigns and at times language used, such as the example I gave of the shoot to kill, President Geingob and I refused to listen to the noise and focused lazily. We vowed to prioritize oneness. We agreed to never look forward to reigniting the things that separate us, and rather pursue best ways of eliminating injurious approaches to handling issues. So we chose to walk away from conflict. We chose to erase opportunities of it arising again. Yet we stuck to the law. Because on the Botswana side, a full, open, transparent inquest was held. This is in respect of the unfortunate, regrettable shooting of the Nchindo brothers. We are sorry for the loss of life. He lost one life too many threatened. We agreed to work very hard to ensure that we diffuse tension, which could potentially be disastrous for our two countries. To that end, Botswana and Namibia replaced their earlier joint commissions on cooperation on defense and security by instituting a higher level platform for bilateral cooperation in the form of a binational commission. So we advanced our thinking. We applied. We took steps deliberate to put our money where our mouths are. And during my visit to Windhoek, the many visits that I made to Windhoek, deliberate visits that I made to Windhoek, sometimes hardly announced or announced as I was mid-air. This one was in September 2022. President Gengob agreed to the formalization of the BNC agreement. That's a Botswana binational commission agreement. And we had our first inaugural session. The binational commission focused on a wide range of issues of mutual interest, including politics and diplomacy, legal matters, regional and multilateral issues, economic cooperation, including trade, and the diamond sector, and social affairs, defense, and security. What I think is particularly interesting for this discussion is the outcome of the inaugural binational commission. There was an agreement that led to passport-free travel using IDs for citizens of both countries. If I can seek your indulgence and take you into my confidence, this came out of a near casual discussion I had with President Gengob, friendly discussion I had with President Gengob when he was my guest of honor at an agricultural show in Khansi. And yes, Monica remembers very well. And after we knocked our heads together and we agreed, and I, in my exuberance, welcoming the president to the show, convinced, having looked at the power levers and levels as in the Constitution of Namibia, and Botswana was ready to make it public. And so I did say, truthfully, that President Gengob and I had agreed that we were going to do this, but we'll operationalize it through the process of taking it through the bureaucracy. So I was throwing the ball back at the public servants to commit them to do. Pressure. I loved it. And President Gengob, in his typical self, got up there and scolded me. He was my guest, but he scolded me. Said, you don't do that. You must take it through the... It didn't matter anymore. Accepted it. And do you know why? It's important to move out of the bureaucratic delays. For 2.5 to 3 years, ordinary citizens could not travel because they didn't have the money to afford a foreign printed passport, either from Namibia to Botswana or from Botswana to Namibia. They couldn't. For that length of time, those who had the passports, which they had paid for expensively, had them stamped with these big stamps to fill the pages fast. It was as if government was in business. Fill the passport quickly, buy a new one. It's on sale, quick. But who are we exploiting? Our own. But with the ID, no passport pages, cheap, digitized, fast, and it enables many more. It enables commerce. It also enhances our integration. What I think is interesting for this discussion is the outcome of the inaugural BNC. By mid-2023, over 6,500 Namibians and a similar number of Botswana had used the ID to cross. Can somebody do the math? What did the family save? What did the government save? I got to learn recently that the Namibian passport either was or still is printed in Greece. And you pay in foreign hard-earned currency. Ours, I think, are printed in Germany. Expensive, unnecessary, only for us to cross imaginary lines that we did not create. The very ones who are paying created them. So they make profit out of drawing these lines. We never drew lines for them. And we never cash in when they travel. And they travel freely in their union. We are still stuck in our old ways. Further BNC discussions accelerated 24-hour operations at the key posts, like the Trans-Kalahari-Mamuno border. The 24-hour operation had managed to eliminate overnight waits for travelers and truckers. The one-stop border at Mamuno has been operational since September 2024, further streamlining clearance for people and goods in a single seamless process. The bilateral successes that I've just enumerated, I believe, were predicated on deeply personal relations. I never second-guessed President Gengop. I never second-guessed President Mbumba rather. I never second-guessed the Namibian technocracy. I never second-guessed the Namibians. Looking into the future, I have every reason to be despondent for obvious reasons. The pressures on the systems of governments across the world, the depressive states of economies, the erosion of legitimacy and sovereignty of states, and assault on territorial integrity, and even the legitimacy of heads of state, some who are pounced on, handcuffed, and removed from power, like they used to a long time ago, and they told us it was not civil to do that. The onslaught on the rules-based international order, attacks on multilateralism, and many other issues cause for concern. However, I choose deliberately to be hopeful about the future. And I want to urge you to choose to be hopeful, because there's reason to be hopeful. In fact, I'm excited actually because there are flashpoints. There are inflection points that indicate that all is not lost. In my relative space, I have thought, I've interacted with some of the finest, brilliant, and experienced Africans who are not only intelligent, but are loyal, they're patriotic, and they're principled, both here in Botswana, and yes, in those conflict-ridden countries as one of the core facilitators of peace in the Eastern DRC, I interact with, including, as I leave later this week to the African Union to give an update on the peace process for Eastern DRC. I know that in my heart of hearts that the right mix of government support, opportunities offered to these amazing Africans to help their countries can usher the Africa, the Southern Africa, the Namibia, the Botswana, or if you like, the future union of Botswana and Namibia, that we will all be proud of and would never regret. Because that's the logical conclusion of courtship is marriage. So how long should Namibia and Botswana be courting? How long? But before you even think about it, you must ask yourself some deep questions. Tell me what the disadvantage of so doing are, if any. And if I started, I wouldn't stop if you ask me the advantages. Tell me who is most opposed to that. And I will tell you easily where they are and where they sit, what they think of us. It's none of us, but them. Tell me what this would mean to competitiveness in terms of our economic prowess. And as I used to argue with President Gengob in my attempt to persuade him to completely join forces on the Diamond Front, as I still so passionately believe. And we equalize our shareholding. We don't join forces on the basis of the natural repository in the ground. We join on an equal footing and we wage. Tell me what we could do to change the world and change your life forever and ever. Yo! But you also look at the wildlife economy space. You look at other natural resources. You look at medical regulation. You look at driving license regulation. Why should we be duplicative? Why? Tell me. That's the future I want to postulate and encourage you to dream of, because yes, it will be good if it happened. I know and I feel very deeply that the correct chemical blend of Namibia and Botswana would coalesce to form a conglomerate that can use the genius of both ends. Finally, I believe there is no smartness in being apart. Zilch, zero smartness. My hope, as I invoke the academic research institutions to delve deep into these questions and come up with helpful solutions that are not self-creating or praising, but that are additive, multiplicative, and exponential in their growth trajectory. My hope lies in the oneness of being, and it is in this oneness that will catapult us beyond where we are and get to where we aspire to be and should be at. Thank you for the teaser.
Another round of applause. You may be seated. Your Excellencies, I know that we are close to the end of the program, but it is only fair that we allow for some engagement with Dr. Masisi, the fifth president of Botswana. There's a lot of takeaways, but I don't want to abuse my position as the director of proceedings, so I'll allow for some questions. But before we do that, Your Excellency, I want to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Dino Balotti. He is the Minister of Education, Innovation, Youth, Sports, Arts and Culture. In other words, the sector Deputy Minister. He's here on behalf of our Honorable Minister who couldn't be here with us. Please give him a round of applause and welcome. I have also seen the arrival of our Deputy Speaker, Honorable Philippus Vido Katamelo, who also speaks very good Setswana. I suspect he will try and steal the president and try and speak to him about those things. You know him. There you go. Give our Deputy Speaker a round of applause. Your Excellency, with your permission, I'd like to take 5 rounds of questions. Initially, 5 rounds of questions, a nice balance. So I'll start if there are any hands in front. Professor Ampanda. Let me have the lady there. Yes, madam. The gentleman there with the green t-shirt. And the gentleman with the blue shirt there. Let's take those 5 hands for now. And then we will try and see whether we can get a second round. And that will probably be the last round before we do our vote of thanks. Let me start with Professor.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Just 2 short things. The first thing, you may not have realized it, Your Excellency, but you created a big problem, particularly for those of us who teach political science. Firstly, our approach has always been, when we're asking and teaching the history of liberation struggle, and when we are mentioning liberation movements, we don't include the BDP. And you created a problem for us because you argue, interestingly and convincingly, that that component of armed struggle doesn't necessarily make you a liberation movement only, that you could decide to do that or not. Whether I agree as a political scientist, whether my colleagues agree, I want to acknowledge that you have created a problem because we have to go and think about that question, and probably the exam question might not be the same anymore. And thanks to President Masisi. The last one, Your Excellency, is when we are talking about developmental state, particularly in the past 20, 30 years of sub-Saharan development history, we speak of only 2 countries that are developmental states, Botswana and Mauritius, in terms of the approach that they've taken. And the challenge has always been, we try to study those developmental states. What has Botswana done? What has Mauritius done? And we only speak about the results of those particular developmental states. But we never get an opportunity to see the construction towards that developmental state. The question that I specifically want to ask is, both Namibia and Botswana have a relationship with the BS. We have NAMDEB 50-50, Botswana has Debtswana 50-50 also. But Botswana went a step further by actually getting shares into the BS itself, the parent company. By implication, it means Botswana government and Botswana as a country have shares in NAMDEB. That's what it means. But we don't have on the other side. What was the political conditions that enabled that, your ability to negotiate even above us, to actually own it there? Because we are only owning at the bottom. So what can we learn? What can you teach us? Particularly, we are interested in the political condition that enabled that, I think, 6 or 10% that Botswana have in the BS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The lady, yes.
Good evening. My name is Herta Mukwaya. I am a first-year political science student and someone who is determined to contribute to the future of politics in Southern Africa. My question is, if my generation wants to leave a stronger political legacy than yours, of course, what is one systematic mistake in Southern African leadership we must refuse to repeat, especially in Namibia-Botswana relations? Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman with the green t-shirt up there.
Very good evening, Your Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Inchia Winter, a first-year student at UNAM. I'm studying a bachelor's in economics. Your Excellency, thank you for sharing your experience and leadership. My question is, Namibia and Botswana are often cited as an example of peaceful coexistence. What lesson from this relationship can or should be preserved as leadership transition in the new generation? Let me structure my question again. What lesson from this relationship should be preserved as leadership transition to a new generation?
Thank you. Yes.
Your Excellencies, my name is Sylvester Kabajani. I'm a member of the Namibia Lives Matter movement. You must forgive me that somehow I'm a little emotional. I must also commend you, Your Excellency, for mentioning the particular atrocity that gave birth to the Namibian Lives Matter movement. I have a couple of questions. I will try to be very brief and very quick. The first one is that Botswana has killed so far about 37 Namibians, unarmed, innocent Namibian fishermen, whose families have endured pain, trauma, and suffering. How do you feel as a former president who led such country, whose record is marred by such atrocities, killings and abductions in cold-blooded murders? Your Excellency, you mentioned the court inquest. Allow me to argue that the court record from the inquest held by Botswana shows evidence of no gun that was used by the brothers, the Chindo brothers. However, the court in Botswana absorbed the BDF, those trigger-happy BDF, that they were not guilty of such offense. They still roam the streets of Botswana freely. Allow me also, Your Excellency, to also pose another question to say, Botswana, in fact, this is just a submission that I'm making. Given the relationship that you built strongly with our late departed Dr. Hage Geingob, the relationship you had personally, Botswana over the years has seen the increase of good relationships that we have enjoyed, to an extent that you have, as Botswana, a dry port in Namibia, a good gesture that Namibia has given. But 37 lives, you mentioned that one life is too many to lose. I want to believe that Botswana is not that selfish to not recognize these atrocities.
Thank you.
Namibia has Botswana's citizens in our prisons, but we have not killed any one of them.
Thank you.
I wish to submit
Thank you.
as such.
Thank you very much. Because I'm not sure whether we'll get another round, I'd like to have one more lady who has a question, a young lady, because we've had, no ladies? No, not a repeat. Okay. Young lady there? Yes, there's a young lady there, please.
Hi.
Give her a round of applause.
Hi, thank you so much, Your Excellency. My name is Bertha Tobias. I'm a PhD student at Oxford University. And my question is, we're increasingly seeing that a lot of power centers are coming from outside of the nation state as we know it. So we're seeing climate-linked finance, we're seeing ESG global standards, we're seeing everything that's happening in the United States. And that is increasingly becoming the source of power. So my question is, for countries like Namibia, like Botswana, how can we continue to self-define without losing agency? And what part of the way we understand the nation state needs to change in a world that is constantly changing in that way? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, you're welcome to take the podium for your response.
Thank you very much. Pardon me if I don't remember the names. And in some instances, I might ask for a clarification for the sake of details on the questions. But I tried my best to scribble the questions as posed. First was the problematization of the labeling of BDP as a former liberation movement. I like the problem. I'm glad you have a problem. And I look forward to your solution, because I'll be looking out for what you come up with. And if we are at opposing ends, I'll be very vigorous in defense of what I believe strongly. And I can be helpful to you by providing you with anecdotes. I can provide you with evidence, and I can provide you with direction of where to get it. The BDP is a party that I used to lead, that I saw famously infamously led to its first loss in the elections of 2024, after it being in power for 58 years, uninterrupted. And therefore, it must be remembered that every country that sought liberation actually attained independence when the BDP was in power. Having its stalwarts pass through and we interacting at a political level with those who led the independence of those countries. Now, simple logic. Can you not additively put the two together and have an equal sign at the end? How can it be denied, or how can we be exonerated from contribution to the liberation? I actually am fascinated how it came about that you excluded us in the first place. I'm totally fascinated. Unless there was this unique definition of liberation as if it were to be achieved only through arms or armed struggle. But we got our liberation and we didn't fight. And we feel quite liberated. I mean, the extent to which we can be. So yes, I love the problem. Good luck, my brother. The next question, as I recall, was the development state issue. Labeling Botswana and Mauritius development states. You often looked at the results, but we didn't look at the construction of it. And then you gave the example of our shareholding in De Beers. Let me give you some fine details. The Botswana government owns 15% of De Beers, fully paid for. the Botswana government used to own shares in Anglo. We were that suave. But you know how we came about? It was de-risking our vulnerability. We are land linked or locked. We, for the longest part, early on in our formation, was surrounded except for 400 meters by white hostile regimes. We had the resource that they wanted so badly. We promulgated a policy of non-racial discrimination and democratic dispensation, mixed economy. And so in the negotiation to get what they wanted, they had to give something. So whenever you negotiate, you don't ask for the nails that could be cut off. You ask for vital organs. So we launched ourselves in there. And we were total novices. We knew nothing about mining. We knew nothing about diamonds. So we sought to deepen ourselves so we can learn. And we reinvested a lot of that revenue in training and capacity development. We have actually made mistakes. We've learned from them. And I here, having lost the elections in 2024, are an example of what can happen when you push, perhaps arguably too far. But I have no regrets. And at another time, when the opportunity arises, I am going to document this because there are lessons to be drawn. My posture, my strategy, negotiation, and pushing and successfully beating them at the negotiating table was very deliberate. And you must learn from it. Not that you should go and lose elections like me, but you must learn from it. And look at the attributes. What presented itself? Let me just spend 1 minute to tease you. You know, for the first time in the history of the country, with 50-something plus years of mining experience and relationship, courting De Beers, all agreements were going to elapse in the term of office of, hey, this guy. Now, if you are this guy, how can you leave such opportunity? It was too good to leave. So I went for the jugular. And they went for my life. Political life, that is. But you know, whatever it is, there are lots of lessons to be learned from it. So we, yes, own 15%. And so, yes, we do, by virtue of being a shareholder in DBS, do own a part of NANDEB. And we do get dividends, by the way. It's good. Which is the argument I was using to President Gengob for us to partner at a new level. And in partnering with us, your guess is as good as mine as to what would logically happen as things mothballed. We, Botswana, Namibia, would be the biggest diamond entity the world has ever seen. And it's not impossible. It's business. This is not charity. It's business, hard business. And yes, when they negotiated the other agreements in the past, they whipped us. De Beers had the biggest, fastest experience of growth because of Botswana. I told them, and they know it. One mine in Botswana alone, the richest diamond mine in the world, is responsible for more than between 60 and 70% of the net value of De Beers. One. That's leverage. How can you leave it when the agreements are lapsing? So what did I want? Fundamentally, I demanded key fundamental changes. What were they? For your own sake. The interpretation of the agreement must be using Botswana law. It had otherwise been using English law. So for the sake of the growth of our jurisprudence and legal, practices, we were not getting any of that experience or expertise. And that's why for the longest time, our big legal advisors, English firm. England has never had diamonds. They probably never will, except the ones in the crown, in the mine. Huh? So that was one. I put it in the bag. I had it. The other, I demanded that the most insulting, abusive, exploitative clause in the agreement, the non compete, be complete. Removed. I even threatened that I, acting on the full authority as granted by the Constitution, since mining began in 1967 or thereabouts, of diamonds, compete clause, it meant that we could never gain anything more than 15% of the potential value of our diamonds. All this time, all that we did with the developmental state was coming from revenue that did not exceed 15% of the potential value of our diamonds because of the clause. What did it do for the beers? In turn, they gained 85% of the potential value of diamonds. A corporation that did not own any country or diamond resource. You come with a herd of cattle, for you who are cattlemen. I'm a cattleman, very proud. Beef, 10 of them. And you employ a skilled herdsman called De Beers. And then you can only get 15% of them. Or let me make it easier. Let's say the cattle are 100. You employ a skilled herdsman called De Beers. And then they tell you you cannot get more than 15 of these cows that are yours. We take 85. Where's the logic? You employ them. They were marketing as labor. Hey, give me a job. You give them a job. You started by owning the 100. As soon as you lock in the agreement of an employment contract, the one that Swapo fought for 19, was it 29 or something? Huh? The one that, 22 or something, that uprising. The labor contract. As soon as the labor contract is signed, they own 85 of them. Huh? What kind of farmer are you? That was very offensive. Knocked it out. But non-compete also meant that we could not participate in the value chain, the value addition, the intellectual capital, and so on and on. I don't want to bore you with it, right? So really, it was a political commitment to try and de-risk. It's a political decision. We negotiated like in any business, and we got it. But there are strategies of negotiation. We'll talk about another time. I mean, there's so many things that we can talk about that have been deeply exciting. And then the second person to ask a question, I'm sorry I didn't write the name here, the one about, I'd say, I think a very young person, 18-year-old, I think, or 19, just turned 19. Last week. Happy birthday. Hey. You want to leave a legacy superior to ours, profound, and I think I'd encourage you to. And you want to know what it is that we can do to so do, if I got you right. First of all, you must study. You must never cease studying. 2, you must immerse yourself deeply into the instruments of government and understand them, be respectful of them. 3, you need to be an unquestioned patriot. You need to be selfless and live a life of integrity and deliver. The rest, I guess, you can engage others who would give you very sound advice. But you have the best opportunity, much better than ours, because we didn't have universities like UNAM in our time. We didn't have the benefit of hindsight like you do from the states that are relatively young. You didn't have the benefit of interacting with persons who had experienced the creations of these legacies like you do. There's another one who was a first year in economics. The peaceful coexistence between Botswana and Namibia, or Namibia being given as an example, and you ask what we should preserve for the future as leaders transit or pass the baton on to the new generation. What should you learn, or what should you leave for you? It's important that we leave behind well-established and very strong institutions. Because running a government or running any organization should exist despite your presence, should exist in spite of your presence, should withstand any assault and be able to repel it and continue, should always be forward-looking, should always be growing, should always be learning, should always be innovating. Always. And you must never negotiate that. So the era of strong men or strong women, corrupt leaders and corrupt followers and corrupt institutions should never enjoy impunity, should never be allowed to set root in our societies. But you should understand also how to look out for any indicators of threat and remove them. Remove the threat. Because we both chose the path of democracy, you know, you might ask yourself, why should we have elections every 5 years? Do you know what it really is? It's a test of the validity of what you have. So am I still relevant? Am I still valid? Do you still like it? If you don't, you vote it out. But it's also important that those who get voted out respect that decision. That's why I walked away. My people told me they'd had enough of me. So you accept it because you went in when they told you they loved you. They wanted you. But even love comes to an end sometimes. And it's important to be respectful of systems and processes. So ingratiate yourselves to that. And this Sylvester, I may have misspelled the surname, starts with a K, of the Lives Matter movement. My very dear brother, thank you for acknowledging that I acknowledged the deep hurt and the harm and the loss of life. But you and I need to have a sober conversation. Very sober. This may not be the best platform for it, but there are some hard truths that must be known. When you get into arguments like this, the first things that we must do is remove and be dispassionate about it. Because you have never counted the number of law enforcers in Botswana who lost their lives. We have never made noise about it. You don't know. In fact, this problem is an ancient problem, including quote-unquote mercenary poachers. We one time had a policeman who was in the very typical Botswana way, because our police are unarmed. They were called by villagers in the deep northwest because they were worried about they'd seen a bearded white man, or they thought he was white, but he was all dark because he was muddy and dirty, but he was bearded, he had bullets strapped all over himself, and he was living in the bush and had bloodshot eyes. I remember his surname very well. It was Kari. His surname was Kari. Look it up. And so the then PMU, we had no army at the time, the police mobile unit was mobilized. They went to an expedition looking for this person. A lot of nervousness. And as it was narrated, it was twilight. They shouted out instructions for him to come out of his hiding place because they had located it. And they shot this this thing you shoot in the sky and it lights up. What's it called, you military people? Skylight. Huh? Oh, no military people here. I'm disappointed. And so when it glowed, he panicked and he started shooting with an automatic rifle everywhere. And they shot and they killed him. Guess what? When he was searched, he had 7 passports. And when investigations were completed, it was demonstrated that he was a Belgian national. What did he want? Nobody knew. But in this camp, there were lots of horns of all manner of things. There were currencies of, so it was never established what he really wanted, where he came from, what he wanted. But fast forward, at the height of the liberation struggle, when Kuvert was very active. And we had many askaris, very active tension suspicions. This is what bred what we both condemn. But yes, my brother, I'm willing to hold hands with you and help you as we carry out the research to find out how many were actually killed on the Botswana side. I'm saying this without denying that Namibians lost their lives. Some may have been innocent, some may not have been innocent. And yes, that inquest was held. It was an open inquest. And as you know, the laws as operated, an inquest can be challenged. Invitations were made to have evidence provided by both sides. And the result is what got published. I won't delve deep into what else I know, because it's important that we heal and move forward. But it's painful because the authorities got to know the true origins of some of those that lost their lives. Yes, I know the gun was not found, but there was invitation for anybody and everybody who was competent to help find the gun. It was a joint team of Namibian and Botswana scuba divers, and the search was called off because the hippos were raging mad. They conversed and decided, is it worth it? The water had also been muddied up, but there was invitation. You could wait a little longer, come back another time and search. Whether the gun was found or not, in law, I'm told sometimes circumstantial evidence and forensic evidence can be used to make a determination. And so, in the absence of indisputable evidence of the demise of the Nchindo brothers having been premeditated and without reason, the soldiers who were responsible for the shooting were not found guilty. But you know, you can always open up the case. But I just wanted to shed light into that there were losses on both sides. You can call them killings, murders, atrocities, etc. And I don't think it's helpful to, at this point, try and draw comparisons and say we have a dry port, but you in turn have corpses to show. We're not competing at that level. We take it further. We want to compete on things that take us forward. We want to compete, not to compete to bring each other down. We want to compete to elevate each other. Because the whole purpose of a relationship, bilateral as it might be for now, is to launch a race to a never finishing line. It's important. Our quest for standards must never end. So I beseech you to find peace, my brother, and all those in their lives, Namibian lives matter. Yes, I used to read on social media how you wanted to ambush me each time I wanted to come to Namibia, how you threatened commerce and trade in Katima because you wanted to avenge. But you know, you should ask yourself your strategy of avenge. Did you want to cause the loss of lives to compensate for what you perceive to have been the loss of lives of the numbers? And what response did you expect would come from those who felt the impact of your work? So the danger with that is that it would never end. It would just escalate, and engulf everybody. Nation states have gone to war they're talking. I myself and 4 of my other compatriots, former presidents, have been missioned by the AU to try and settle the peace in Eastern DRC. And there are serious atrocities committed by both sides. In your own war of liberation, there are serious atrocities that are committed. You talked on this day, you settled it. And some of you here and some you know, the 92 came out and said, we have agreed. Let's settle these things and move forward. I beg you. Bertha, I think the name is Bertha, who's studying at Oxford, the equivalent of UNAM. Yes, you agree, VC? Yes. The risks of influence coming from actors outside the state apparatus, such as climate financing. How do we de-risk that? If I summarize your question correctly. Did I? You know, there are relativities to this. We as emerging nation states have only so much power. It's important in the exercise of power to make sure that when you exercise power, you have real power. Real power. Many of us, Namibia, Botswana included, don't have it. But ask yourself, particularly that you come from this well-known institution of higher learning, research, and innovation. Oxford itself could be included as those having the money, sometimes superior to the fiscus of either Namibia or Botswana. Where do they get it from? Why can't we get it too? Part of it is from tuition fees. We take our best students, we take them to Oxford. We pay in pounds. Where do the best students of the citizens of England, Wales, and Scotland go to school? Do they send their best students to UNAM and pay in what currency? Where are the patent holders? And which patents make most money? Cast your eyes around the room and look at your spectacles. Look at your dresses, your shirts, your suits. Where are they from? Your bags, your wallets, your currency, where is it printed? Who owns those patents? The accumulation, even from colonial conquest, the illegal accumulation of wealth transgenerationally, including wealth accumulated from cheap exploited labor, not just slavery and others, that's wealth, that's power. The guns that our security forces use, where are they made and who are they shooting? And so when I vexed my cabinet and my party central committee with these questions at the height of COVID, I decided deliberately that we needed to reset our agenda. And that's how the reset agenda in Botswana emerged. We had to reprioritize. And in order to accelerate the development state, I then challenged that we need to reconfigure our orientation increasingly away from dependency on resources and commodities to intellect and knowledge. The power, the latent power and potential we have as Africans, the youngest continent, with minds that can be developed the longest, is immeasurable. Never underestimate it. So go on, UNAM, grab those young minds, train them properly, and reorient them so that we create knowledge, we create patents, we create intellectual capital, we monetize it, and they consume it. All our commodities are value added home. And when we've done that, my dear, and you have your wonderful PhD, then we can start our own green climate finance. And then come back into this hall and ask the question again. The challenge now is, how long are you willing to wait until you do that? So get on with it. Thank you.
A wonderful speaker. I know we are dying, all of us, to ask some questions, but unfortunately we have completely run out of time. I'm aware that Dr. Masisi is very, very active on social media. I have shared a love letter that someone has shared with him also. And so there will be other platforms and opportunities to engage with our former president. But Your Excellency, this means, you can see from this hall, this means that you have to return for episode 2 of this lecture. Before I call on our Vice Chairperson of the UNAM Council, I want to call on Honorable Balotti Dino, who has a very short message of less than 2 minutes from our Honorable Minister, Dr. Sanet Steenkamp.
Honorable Dowsep gave me 3 minutes via message, but now 2 minutes as announced. Your Excellency, Dr. Mbumba, please permit me to share that I take advantage of your comment in 2022 at the 4IR Country Readiness Conference and Expo, where you said, and I quote, "Us youth," which will forever ensure that I consider you a youth, where I am now myself a retired youth. Your Excellency, Dr. Masisi, the 5th President of Botswana and our officially adopted Namibian. President, I was fortunate to attend your 2023 Forbes 30 Under 30 event in Gaborone. I must be honest, I came with strict instructions to steal with my eyes. Under your leadership, you got it right to host this global youth event. I believe it was for 3 consecutive years. And I recall at the closing ceremony, it was a spit braai, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. And President Masisi stood in the queue. And it resonates, and it reminds me of a book authored by Simon Sinek entitled Leaders Eat Last. And President Masisi, that analogy symbolizes selfless leadership. And again, we shall now wait and see where you eat this evening. Your Excellencies, Madam Gaingos, Madam Neo Jane, in attendance our VC, Prof. Matengu. I know I probably have a few seconds remaining. My senior honorable Katamelo, I acknowledge you. My Deportivo La UNAM fellow midfielder, Prof. Mupanda, I acknowledge you. And everyone from the university, our university, the UNAM of Namibia, I also acknowledge you. I'm not sure if we have anyone from the UNAM of Botswana in attendance, but you two are equally acknowledged. As I now draw to a quick close, President Masisi, we are grateful. Your storytelling skills are second only to a handful of Namibians. And I speak on behalf of all in attendance this evening when I say that your reflections and insights were brilliant. They were honest, they were meaningful. Your astuteness and mental intellect make you a true statesman. We have extracted significant knowledge, albeit not how to lose an election or how to non-compete to give away 85 of our 100 cattle, but all in good humor, we appreciate you dearly. Of your final comments of immersing oneself in education, being selfless and living a life of integrity, among other qualities that you mentioned, have been noted down, and I commit to repeating this at many youth engagements going forward. Now, not to take away from our vote of thanks by our Council Vice Chair, Ms. Ilago, I'm grateful that Honorable Dausab permitted me an opportunity to thank you on behalf of our ministry, that's Education, Innovation, Youth, Sport, Arts and Culture, as well as on behalf of my minister, our minister, Honorable Dr. Sanet Steenkamp. My final contribution, Your Excellency, is for you to kindly convey a message to President Boko, where your nation beat our nation's football Old Crocs on the 1st of November last year in Gaborone. We are ready for the rematch here on home turf. I am now joined the pool of Old Crocs, and I believe the officials may have been a bit biased in that encounter. President Masisi, we look forward to inviting you back home more frequently going forward, and we can now tell you that you are one of us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chancellor, sir, Dr. Masisi, I now have the honor
Your Excellency Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, former President of the Republic of Namibia and Chancellor of the University of Namibia, the UNAM of Namibia. Your Excellency Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, former President of the Republic of Botswana and my former boss, always my boss. Honorable ministers here present, members of parliament here present, former ministers, former members of parliament, your excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners, all dignitaries that are present here, the management of the University of Namibia, led by our able VC, Dr. Kenneth Matembu, students and everybody that has joined us this evening, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for you all for having joined us, but most importantly, to thank His Excellency Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, the former President and Chancellor of the University, for your attendance, but also for your opening remarks and introducing our speaker so eloquently, and your continued support and dedication as Chancellor of the University of Namibia. We can't take that for granted, especially given that you have retired and you still find time to execute your duties as Chancellor. We are forever grateful. Let me also acknowledge the presence of our First Ladies, Madam Masisi, Madam Bumba, Madam Gengos. Thank you for joining us this evening, and your presence is highly appreciated and valued. I want to extend our sincere thanks and deep appreciations to Dr. Masisi. As I said, my boss, my former boss, and you'll always be my boss. Having worked with you under your leadership and that of your colleagues, heads of states, as I led the Southern African Customs Union Secretariat, I will forever cherish your counsel, your leadership, and guidance, even during the most difficult times. Thank you so much, my boss. You found time in your busy schedule to come home, not to visit Namibia, but to come home, and also to deliver such an excellent and insightful, but also brutally frank. And you don't get that every day. Shall we give him a round of applause for that?